Meghan Markle's Sundance red carpet is being slammed as disastrous over claims of inauthentic interviews. Is this criticism fair or overblown? Watch and drop your thoughts in the comments.
Joining us now for all the royal news is Josh Rom, royal commentator. Josh, it's wonderful to see you again. Happy New Year to you. Let's start with Harry and Meghan. Fans of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have fired back at claims that they failed to sell out a Sundance Film Festival screening of their latest documentary project after images circulated showing empty seats inside the theatre. What's happened here?
Yes, so usually Sundance Film Festival, one of the biggest film festivals, usually a title like this with a celebrity like this would sell out the auditorium, but yet footage has emerged showing quite a few gaps in the auditorium at this festival. So it's been estimated, Page 6 has reported, that at one time around the start of the showing, at the start of the screening, 150 seats were emptied. This then went down to around 60 seats when some people from the waiting list were then allowed in, because it's thought that some of the priority ticket holders, the priority pass holders of the festival, apparently it's been reported that some of them chose not to show up to this screening. Now, what I would say about this, a few things as well, what I've noticed. One, Meghan Markle was invited to speak just beforehand, just before the film starts, which usually that's a space reserved for either the director, the main producer, not really necessarily an executive producer go up to speak before a film, but okay, maybe this is evidence of a trend of maybe executive producers having more input into projects rather than solo producers, directors and talent, so to speak. We know that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry executive produced this new documentary film, Cookie Queens, about Girl Scouts, navigating the business world, young entrepreneurship, being a bit inspirational through Archwell Productions, just what the world needs. But yes, and this was after, can I just say, an absolutely disastrous red carpet. Because when speaking to Deadline, when speaking to Mark Malkin, it appeared to be Meghan couldn't recall either Prince Harry's favourite Girl Scout cookie flavour. And then when she was asked what her favourite was, she said, oh, well, everyone likes the mints or whatever. She couldn't even say authentically from her own thing when asked, my favorite flavor is this. When she's doing, bearing in mind, she wasn't doing that many solo interviews, she was doing mostly joint interviews with the film's director, with the documentary's director. And by the way, this comes just days after this huge court case where Prince Harry is completely lambasting the press in London. He's going on this crusade once again, in this case against Associated Newspapers. For those that may not know, that's the Mail on Sunday, the Daily Mail group. And I was there in the courtroom when I heard completely contradictory testimony. But just days after being in court, lambasting the press and saying, and I quote, they have made my wife's life absolutely miserable. Just days after that, there they are posing on a red carpet. Meghan is giving seemingly disastrous interviews where she can't even recall her favorite Girl Scout cookie flavor when she's promoting a film about Girl Scout cookies. And it's insane. And
I want to get to that court case. Of course, you were inside the courtroom. Before we do, though, there are questions being raised about what Prince Harry's actually up to in America. He's been labelled a glorified house husband by insiders who claim he's not really doing anything in America, as questions really kind of swirl over his career and then, of course, long-term future in California. What are you hearing?
Well, I'm hearing roughly the same. That's what sources are saying. Sources are saying he's not really doing anything. Glorified house husband is the thing. But I also think we need to look at it also at face value. What is he doing? Okay, he's working behind the scenes on the Invictus Games. That's obviously a long-term project that he's had before he stepped away as a working member of the royal family, and before he moved over to California. But you know, when it comes to what he's been doing, they obviously, the couple, the Sussexes, signed this huge big money Netflix deal, 5-year deal in 2020 that's now been completely downgraded to a first look deal. Then came Spare, that book, into his memoir in 2023, again a trashathon of the royal family, after of course the Harry and Meghan documentary that they produced and starred in on Netflix. I say documentary, it was more of a kind of docu-reality series, but that's the thing. Here's Meghan now, and when it comes to at the Sundance Film Festival, although Prince Harry was listed as an executive producer and he was there smiling for pictures and greeting some of the people in the film, he wasn't doing much interviews. No, Meghan was the one who was actually promoting the project, bless her. And then also Meghan at the moment, she's the one doing the With Love Meghan series. She's the one trying to flog her jam and her brands and her cookies and her flour sprinkles and honeys and jams and everything else that she's doing in as ever. I mean, listen, I know I say it like that, but listen, at least she's actually doing something. When we're looking at Harry, we have to look at it. What's he doing? What big public venture is he doing? What philanthropic endeavor is he going to next, apart from these quasi-royal tours with Meghan, strutting across the world on quasi visits which aren't even doing anything? They're not proper state visits. They're not organized through the royal family. And that's what you've got to ask yourself. You've got to look, what is he actually doing? Not much is the answer. And bearing in mind, they have massive overheads. They have to pay, it's estimated $2 to $3 million a year for their private security. They've got a huge mortgage payment, up to estimates are saying $10 million on their big Montecito mansion. So this is the thing. You look at Harry now. I've heard sources have told me and out there that he's been trying to look for some more maybe speaking engagements on that sort of things, maybe doing corporate speaking sort of stuff. That's what he might be looking to do. But that's the thing, when it comes to his career, and aside from the stuff which he's been publicly doing with Meghan, you know, God bless Meghan, at least she's got her own solo ventures. Harry, it doesn't appear that he's got that. His last big solo venture was Spare, and well, we know how that went down. Massive pay packet, but reputational. So you've got to look at it.
Well, let's talk about the court case last week. Of course, Prince Harry gave evidence last week in his high-profile case accusing Associated Newspapers Limited, A&L, publisher of Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday, of unlawfully gathering information relating to their private lives, and a claim, of course, that the publisher denies. Josh, you were inside the courtroom when Harry became emotional. Can you take us inside? What was that like?
Yes, I didn't actually realise how softly spoken Harry was. At times, all of us in the public gallery, all the journalists, reporters there, actually at times struggled to hear Prince Harry at times because he was speaking quite quietly and the microphones weren't necessarily the best. But yes, what I would say is my first assessment of it, he was very much angry, very much frustrated. The judge intervened 3 times during his testimony, the judge saying a number of times that the judge was trying to be quite nice to Harry. The judge said, I see this on the stand all the time. Witnesses feel like they have to make a point or argue or whatever. You do not have to do that. Please just answer the questions, because Harry was trying to make these big points about how it affected his life, and he was trying to almost argue against the barrister from Associated Newspapers when putting a question to him. At times, Harry was like, well, I dispute the facts of this question. I was trying to almost argue back against the barrister. So he appeared very much frustrated, very much angry. But the testimony was contradictory, because on one hand, he was saying how, oh, it's not possible. My inner circle wouldn't leak to the press. They know journalists. They know who's who. They wouldn't leak. But then on the other hand, he was also saying things of, well, my circle of trust and my circle of knowledge was decreasing. And if I did get suspicious, I would cut people off. the testimony at times appeared quite contradictory in that way. When he got emotional, that was very much towards the end of the testimony, because these are historic allegations going back to the late 90s to the early 2010s with some of these articles. So he didn't have to mention Meghan. Meghan actually had zero any relevance to this case whatsoever. All of these articles that he was accusing the Mail Group of unlawful information gathering did not relate to Meghan whatsoever. And he said at the end, with a cracked voice, holding back tears, saying, as I said before, they've made my wife's life an absolutely miserable, was the quote. And again, this was kind of, I don't want to say his crusade. Well, I think I did earlier in the program, but he was very much kind of hammering home the point of a dislike of the press, of the tabloid press, going on and on and on, again with this contradictory information. But there was one point as well which was very interesting, because there was one article that the Mail printed about a rumoured love interest, the TV presenter in the UK called Natalie Pinkham. And Prince Harry said Natalie Pinkham has not been and never has been a source, even though her words were actually directly attributed in that article. So the judge actually had to tell Harry what a source in journalism was. It's not just people behind the scenes necessarily leaking information. You know, if a journalist phones up a person and asks for a quote and they give a quote, that is effectively a source, something which Prince Harry might not have necessarily have been aware of, it seems to be. So it was absolutely riveting testimony. I would say definitely dramatic, definitely contradictory. He only really got properly emotional when speaking about Meghan right at the end, but there was quite a lot of revelation. So he didn't deny using a social media platform, Facebook. However, he did deny using the name Mr. Mischief, which was quite entertaining in the courtroom. And at the beginning, there was a bit of a hoo-ha, a bit of confusion over how he was going to be referred to, whether they referred to him as His Royal Highness. Of course, that HRH title should remain inactive as he's not a working member of the royal family. So that was the kind of deal that was struck with Her Late Majesty the Queen. So it was very interesting, very riveting, very much Harry on his campaign against the tabloid press, using the buzzwords. He wasn't afraid to use the buzzwords, and I quote, "I just want responsibility and accountability." That's what he was saying. But then, of course, the British tabloid press, we can go on and on, but of course they are regulated by the Independent Press Standards Organisation. There is the Ipso Editors Code, where they don't print certain things. They're not allowed to print certain things and risk fines if they do, and obviously the News of the World newspaper was shut down back in the day as well. So the press is in a different place now. There is responsibility, there is accountability, and Prince Harry, of course, not necessarily knowing all the facts, or at least not wanting to present all the facts, and I think to a certain extent not wanting to accept the fact that the Associated Newspapers would never reveal their sources, and no journalist would ever reveal their sources. But it was very, very clear, at least from the articles, that at least with some of them, and at least this is what the Associated Newspaper lawyer and barrister tried to present in the case, which actually, there were probably leaks in his inner circle, something in which he probably just, or at least from the testimony, it seems that he just didn't want to accept.